Here's another situation where rain may factor in a little bit. Georgia and Alabama Saturday in Tuscaloosa, and our man Palmer Thombs, Nashvilleian, who covers Georgia Bulldogs for Dawgs HQ, is on the line with us. Palmer, how are you?
Yeah, let me first tip my cap to Billy's father Ryan fighting Irish and beating my big red on Friday.
The rivalry,
the rivalry. The streak is over though. The streak is over. So congratulations to the whole Derrick family there.
Boom, take that, Kelly.
Oh gosh, Billy, it's not a rival. Well, I mean, I get
rivalry.
I'm gonna quit belaboring the problem here.
Kelly, do you think maybe Billy slipped Palmer maybe a little scratch?
He probably did. Who knows about Billy? Billy's shady. We all know Billy's shady somewhat.
No, I actually texted Billy when he was texting me about coming on the show this morning. I said, "Hey, wait, is that your brother that's running quarterback for the Irish?" And he said, "Sure enough, it is." So, no, I told him I felt like single-handedly I was going to lose that rivalry game back in 2017 when in my first career start at right tackle, I was a right guard that got bumped out to right tackle and had to block an Air Force commit. But we digress.
But I was telling Palmer every year there were years where Father Ryan was better, but NBA would find a way to outcoach us and make fewer mistakes. But finally, the streak is over.
So his brother, to Palmer, his brother's obviously more athletic than Billy, correct?
Yeah, oh, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm the Cooper Manning of the Derrick.
And on your end, apparently you saw the light and said, this athlete thing isn't going to work. I'll be a sports writer.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, that was probably the day right there that I said, yeah, no, football ain't for me. Let's find a way to stay involved in the sport, but get off the field.
Mine happened in 5th grade, gray Y, but we move on. So Bryant Denny is a natural grass surface. I have not checked out Tuscaloosa weather, but I don't feel like the next few days will be bright sunshine and 80. What do you think that does to that game?
You know, I did just pull up the weather. It doesn't look like it's going to be too wet in Tuscaloosa. I think the storm has shifted just far enough east that Tuscaloosa is really not going to be too involved in it. But there was a little while there where it looked like the storm was going to be hitting Tuscaloosa. And, I think that's a good thing for Georgia. You want to, with this Alabama secondary that's maybe not the strength of their defense, you definitely want to be able to air the ball out, and you want to be able to run some deep patterns. And like you said, a natural grass surface there at Saban Field is, you want that dry.
So when you watch Georgia over the last 2 or 3 years, there's not a whole lot of reason to say, well, there are a lot of question marks. But all of a sudden, Palmer, this thing in Lexington, and I watched it a week after Kentucky got dismantled by South Carolina, they take Georgia to the absolute mat. And to me, only Georgia's we know how to win and Kentucky doesn't know how to close this deal got them the victory that night. What warning bells has this sent you about Georgia?
Yeah, I think when you look at this Georgia team, they very much miss Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. And I know that's shocking that they're going to miss, top 2 round pass catchers. I mean, Ladd was effectively a first-round pick there going with the 34th overall selection, I believe, to the Chargers. And Brock was a first-round pick, 13th overall at tight end. And so you've got 2 first-round caliber receivers and pass catchers that are no longer in this offense. And Georgia, is missing those guys. I think that they're also missing their ability to block on the perimeter. That's something that Kirby Smart has long emphasized. And, he made the comparison yesterday in talking to him. He said, losing Ladd and Brock at pass catcher is very similar to losing Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis on that defensive line from that 2021 team. And you could throw in Trayvon Walker and Jalen Carter as well, 2 fellow first rounders, a first overall pick there in Walker to the Jags. losing those guys on offense has had that effect of losing those guys on defense. And we're still seeing Georgia try to replicate what those guys meant to that defensive line. And I think that, you know, as he said, you try to replace their bodies, but you try to, you know, replace their impact in you know, finding different ways to, you know, come up with stuff. And so I think that Georgia's trying to do that offensively right now. They're trying to get the run game going. Trevor Etienne is a very talented back. Nate Frazier is a true freshman, but, you know, he's fitting right into the SEC. You've got some pass catchers on the outside and some talented tight ends as well. But Georgia needs to get those guys involved, and they need Carson Beck to play a little bit better and elevate the play of everyone around him.
Okay, I've had a little fun with London Humphreys about the play that got him on everybody's radar screen a year ago when he was at Vandy. He takes a slant pass. He's got 4 Georgia defenders who all think they're going to catch him, and he just goes boom. And I believe it was at that moment that Georgia said, we might want to look at this guy. Why am I not hearing more about him?
Well, Saturday, you won't be hearing more about him because he's dealing with mono. That's the report out there that he's going to be missing some time because of that. You know, honestly, he did have a huge impact in Georgia's first game of the season. The win over Clemson, had 2 catches for 60-something yards, including a 40-yard touchdown to help the Bulldogs seal the deal in the second half. And you know, he got onto the field that game. I believe it was like 7 snaps or something, but to have 2 catches in that short impact and to, you know, step up when they lost Dylan Bell for the game because of some cramps. He was having to be in the locker room getting an IV. You know, to step into that spot and make an impact showed that he is a capable contributor for the Bulldogs. And I you know, throw the Tennessee Tech game aside and throw the Kentucky game aside, you know, because I think that you kind of have to, you know, forget about what happens against an FCS opponent. And, you know, 2 Saturdays ago against Kentucky was just not Georgia. You know, I think that when you look at the impact that he had, it showed you that, hey, maybe coming out of this bye week, like the Bulldogs are now, you know, that they could have used a London Humphreys, and they won't have his impact this Saturday and likely for a little while.
Palmer, when I turned off the TV 2 weeks ago, I said to myself, Georgia knew that they were going to find a way to win that game, and Kentucky suspected they were going to find a way not to win that game. Did you feel that way watching it?
I did, especially the Georgia part of it. You know, you watch Georgia over the last few years, and they've had a couple of these games. You know, back in 2022, coming off of that first national championship, they struggled at Missouri. Last year, they struggled at home against South Carolina. They struggled on the road against Auburn. So they've had some of these games where it hasn't been the prettiest, and they have just found a way to win. You know, I think that that's kind of something, a learning experience. And we've talked to several of the players since then and said, hey, what is that win? What can that do for you guys as you go into another hostile road environment and a tougher one? You know, Kroger Field, you know, all respect to it, but it's no Bryant-Denny Stadium with 100,000 in the stands. And, you know, I think that they said, you know, it can give you confidence. It can give you that Missouri game back in 2022 was something that they looked back on and counted on and referenced multiple times throughout that year. Last year, the Auburn game was. And so I think having a learning experience like that early in the season can have lasting effects for this team. And so I think that, you know, Georgia probably didn't want to, first of all, Georgia probably didn't pull out all stops to beat Kentucky. You know, like you said, I think that they probably felt like, hey, we can win this game. You know, we can get this done without showing everything that we've got in the bag. And so I think that they probably saved some of that for Alabama, but also, you know, I think that deep down Kirby Smart is probably happy that his team did struggle some. They get over that. They hear some of the criticism. They use that as fuel to their fire. They use the experience of overcoming adversity, you know, as something that they can fall back on. And ultimately you get out of Lexington with a win, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter the margin of victory. You know, 1, 2, 3, whatever it may be, you know, you're happy winning that game, regardless of what the scoreboard says.
Nashvilleian Palmer Thombs, who covers the Georgia Bulldogs for Dawgs HQ, is on the line with us. Kelly, what do you got for him?
Palmer, so I'm going to give Joel Klatt all the credit for this, because I was watching his deal today, and he came up with something that I thought that was really intriguing to me. But which coach in this matchup do you think has more pressure on him? Because if you look at Kirby Smart, he was 1-5 against his mentor. He they only won one game out of that, and if he goes in and he beats Kalen DeBoer, he should win, because this is his first time. They consider him probably, he's won the last 2 out of 3 national championships. People are considering him the best coach in the country. But if Kalen DeBoer wins the game, I mean, is it just the same old, and he's got to get over that too? So who as a coach has more pressure in this game?
It's a toss up there. I'm going to say Kalen, playing in front of a home crowd, and a crowd that has big expectations. They are accustomed to beating Georgia. Georgia's not all that accustomed to beating Alabama. And so, yes, I do think that there is absolutely pressure on Kirby Smart to say that, Kalen DeBoer probably has a little bit more. Doesn't decrease the amount of pressure that's on Kirby. I think that, people are looking at this game as an opportunity for him to solidify himself as the face of college football with Nick Saban out. I think it's an opportunity for him to, in this new look SEC, and they'll have another opportunity, to establish themselves in a new look SEC a couple weeks from now at Texas. But in this new look SEC, this Saban-less SEC, I think that it's an opportunity for Kirby to put his stamp down and say, hey, I'm the guy, we're the school, we're the program, and the SEC still runs, the SEC runs through Athens, Georgia. That being said, I think that there absolutely is pressure on Kalen DeBoer too. And I would probably lean a little bit more his way, given the fact that this game is being played in Tuscaloosa and those fans are so accustomed to the winning ways. I don't know that the expectations have dropped off all that much, even though Nick Saban may be sitting in a different office.
With this ever-changing SEC landscape and all the many teams, and I'm going to go into it on the next question, but whoever loses this game, what are their chances of making the SEC championship game?
I think for Alabama, you look at their schedule and they've got Missouri, who's a tough team, but has shown some struggles. They avoid Texas. They still play Oklahoma, but again, Oklahoma is a squad that's not, looking all that strong so far this season. To me, I would say that Alabama is still in a strong spot if they can take care of business. Georgia has a lot of work, win or lose this game. But like I said, you've still got Texas, you've still got Tennessee, you've still got Ole Miss, and that is a team. Tennessee is a team that Alabama's got to play too, and that game being at Neyland is certainly is a big factor there. And I think from an SEC championship perspective, you probably don't want to have more than one loss. And so if you lose this game, you're fighting an uphill battle. For Alabama, it's probably a little bit easier given the schedule. But I think that from a college football playoff perspective, both these teams can't afford to lose this game. And that's the disappointing part of the new, landscape, is that the regular season games have a little bit less significance, but there are more games that have significance. Instead of a November matchup between 12 and 18, not meaning much at all, that's going to mean a lot now. Now, it probably means that these games of the year, these 2 versus 4 type games, they mean a little bit less. But I think that, as it comes for the SEC and the championship race to get to Atlanta, you really want to win this game for both these teams, because you do have tough schedules ahead, tougher for Georgia, in my opinion, than Alabama. But either team, it's a tough row to hoe.
Palmer, appreciate you coming on. Georgia is the favorite. Alabama hasn't been a home underdog since 2007. Does that give Alabama motivation, you think? And if you're Kirby Smart, how do you get what do you use? What's the rat poison for Kirby this week that he's going to try to get his team fired up? Because like you said, there's no Brock Bowers, there's no McConkey, but you still got Carson Beck, you still got some older guys on that team that know what it takes, and lost to Alabama last year in the SEC championship. So is there already plenty of motivation, or do you think Kirby's going to be cooking something up pregame?
No, I mean, that right there is the motivation. You lost this game last year. It kept you out of the college football playoffs. It kept you from, having a chance at a three-peat. That right there. And Kirby said as much this week is he said, hey, this week, when you go into a game like this, you don't really have to cook up, and create that sort of motivation, that it's already there. I think that Alabama and Jalen Milroe might have created a little bit of it. You go back to his comments a couple days after that SEC championship game. He said, I'm big on body language and looking into the opponent's eyes. They looked defeated and didn't want any more. And I knew our team knew it was going to be a 60-minute game, and Georgia didn't believe in that. I know that Georgia has used that this week. I know that those guys are aware of that. We talked to Dylan Fairchild and Malachi Starks, two really talented players for the Bulldogs, one on each side of the ball yesterday, and they both talked about it. Dylan was asked and said, hey, are you guys aware of this? Is this being used as motivation? And very sternly said, hey, we're aware. We're aware, and didn't, you could tell that it struck a nerve with Fairchild. And, Malachi being an All-American at safety, he's got a big game on, going up against Ryan Williams in this Alabama passing attack. He said, hey, I don't believe that. We think that we're a defense that doesn't quit, that doesn't go with the G. So there's their motivation on the Georgia side. I do think that I would say that the home underdog is probably a factor for Alabama. That's something that DeBoer was asked about, and he said, that kind of falls right in line with their Lank mentality. That there are naysayers out there, and that they want to let them know that Alabama is here to stay, whether it's Nick Saban, whether it's Kalen DeBoer, whether it's, whoever is leading that program, whoever's part of that program, that they are here to stay and that they are still Alabama. And so I think that there's some motivation on both sides of this. I certainly think that there's a lot on that Georgia side.
Palmer, you were good to do this. I hope you're right that it's a dry field Saturday night. And if it is, get me a couple of tickets on the 50 and I'll pay you later.
Will do. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Palmer.
you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Palmer Thombs with Dawgs HQ. Does make me ask the question, what would it take to get 2 tickets on the 50? And the answer, scratch.